Before Christmas night, I arrived home and found my daughter-in-law cleaning my kitchen. "I stopped by to help you get organized," she said with a smile. But when she went to the bathroom, my cell phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "Do not spend the night there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from." The December cold had already settled into the bones of my farmhouse when I pulled into the driveway that afternoon, 3 days before Christmas. At 70 years old, I'd learned to read the subtle signs of disturbance in my own home, the way a mother knows when her child has been in the cookie jar. The porch light was on, though I distinctly remembered turning it off that morning. My daughter-in-law Rachel's silver sedan sat parked near the barn, gleaming despite the thin layer of frost coating everything else. I felt my chest tighten, not from the cold, but from that peculiar anxiety that had been growing stronger with each of her unexpected visits over the past few months. I pushed open the front door, and the scent of lemon cleaner hit me immediately. Rachel appeared from the kitchen, her blonde hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, wearing yellow rubber gloves that matched her perpetually cheerful smile. "Roxanne, there you are. I stopped by to help you get organized," she said, her voice bright and artificially warm. The kitchen was looking a bit cluttered, and with Christmas dinner coming up, I thought you could use a hand. My kitchen, the one I'd kept for 45 years, since Harold and I first bought this farm. The one where I'd raised my son Thomas and buried my husband 5 years ago. The one I'd never asked anyone to organize. "That's very kind, Rachel, but I didn't realize I'd given you a key." I kept my voice measured, polite, the way I'd learned to be with her over the 7 years she'd been married to Thomas. "Oh, Thomas gave it to me months ago, for emergencies." She waved a gloved hand dismissively. "You know how he worries about you out here all alone." I set my purse down on the entry table, noticing immediately that the stack of mail I'd left there was gone. My hands trembled slightly as I removed my coat. "Where's my mail, Rachel?" "I organized it for you. Bills in one pile, junk in another. It's all on the kitchen counter now, sorted by importance." She beamed at me as if she'd just given me a wonderful gift. I walked into the kitchen, and my stomach dropped. Everything had been moved. The ceramic canisters Harold had brought back from his Navy days, now lined up with military precision instead of their comfortable cluster by the stove. My recipe box, which always sat next to the refrigerator, was now on top of it. The drawer where I kept important documents stood slightly ajar. "I hope you don't mind, but I couldn't help noticing some of your paperwork was just stuffed in that drawer," Rachel continued, following me. "I took the liberty of creating a filing system. Property deeds, insurance documents, bank statements, all properly organized now." The blood rushed in my ears. "You went through my documents?" "Only to help, Roxanne." Her smile never wavered, but something cold flickered in her blue eyes. "At your age, it's important to keep these things in order. Thomas and I have been so worried about you managing everything alone." Before I could respond, she glanced at her watch. "Oh my, I need to use your bathroom before I head out." "Be right back." She hurried down the hallway, her footsteps quick and purposeful. I stood frozen in my reorganized kitchen, feeling violated in a way I couldn't quite name. This wasn't the first time she'd shown up uninvited. Over the past 6 months, these helpful visits had become increasingly frequent, always when Thomas was at work, always with that same brittle smile. My cell phone vibrated in my coat pocket. I pulled it out, my arthritic fingers fumbling with the screen. A text message from an unknown number glowed on the display. "Do not spend the night there." I stared at the words, reading them 3 times. My heart hammered against my ribs. I quickly checked the number, completely unfamiliar. No area code I recognized. I glanced toward the hallway where I could hear the bathroom faucet running. My fingers moved across the screen, typing back. "Who is this?" The 3 dots appeared immediately, indicating someone was typing. Then they stopped. Started again. Stopped. Finally, nothing. I heard the toilet flush, and I shoved the phone back into my pocket just as Rachel emerged from the hallway, pulling off her rubber gloves with a satisfied snap. "All done. Your house looks so much better now, doesn't it?" She gathered her purse and coat from the chair. "Thomas and I will see you for Christmas dinner in 2 days. We're so looking forward to it." She moved toward the door, then paused, turning back to me with that smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Oh, and Roxanne? I noticed you have an appointment with your lawyer next week. I saw it in your calendar book. Is everything all right? Thomas didn't mention anything about legal matters." My blood turned to ice. My calendar book had been in my bedroom, on my nightstand. She'd been in my bedroom. "Just routine estate planning," I managed to say, though my voice sounded strangled even to my own ears. Of course. Though if you need any help with that, you know Thomas has that friend who's a lawyer. Much more affordable than Ed Parker, I'm sure. We'd hate to see you waste money on expensive legal fees." She adjusted her scarf, her movements casual, but her gaze was sharp, calculating. "Family should help family, don't you think?" She left before I could respond, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like a threat. I stood alone in my violated kitchen, the scent of lemon cleaner now making me nauseous. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. I pulled it out again, staring at that message. Do not spend the night there. Who would send such a warning, and why? I walked slowly through my house, seeing it now with different eyes. What else had Rachel touched? What else had she seen? My bedroom door was open. I always kept it closed. Inside, my nightstand drawer was slightly askew. The drawer where I kept Harold's old service revolver, unloaded and locked, alongside his Navy papers and our wedding certificate. I opened the drawer with shaking hands. Everything was still there, but shifted, examined, invaded. The gun was in a slightly different position. Someone had been looking for something. My phone vibrated again. Another message from the unknown number. "Check your property deed, the copy in your kitchen drawer." My pulse roared in my ears as I hurried back to the kitchen. I yanked open the drawer Rachel had so helpfully organized and found the manila folder labeled property documents in handwriting that wasn't mine. Inside was my property deed, the original document proving my ownership of these 40 acres in the farmhouse. Except something was wrong. I carried it to the window, holding it up to the fading December light. There, nearly invisible unless you were looking for it, were faint marks along the edge. Someone had tried to carefully separate the pages, possibly to scan or photograph them. The staple had been removed and replaced, but not in exactly the same holes. A third message arrived. "She's been copying your documents for months. You're in danger. I'll explain everything, but you must leave the house tonight. Go somewhere she doesn't know about." My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I typed back with fumbling fingers. "Who are you? How do you know this?" The response came immediately. "A friend. Someone who knows what she's capable of. There's a motel off Route 50, the Pine Grove Inn. Check in under a different name. I'll contact you there tomorrow morning. Please, Roxanne. Trust me. Your life depends on it." I looked around my kitchen, my sanctuary, now feeling like a trap. Rachel's lemon cleaner scent lingered like a warning. I thought about her hands in my drawers, her eyes on my documents, her questions about my lawyer appointment. I thought about Thomas, my own son, who'd given her a key without asking me, who'd been so distant lately, so quick to suggest I might be forgetting things or getting confused. The winter sun was setting, casting long shadows through my windows. I had perhaps an hour of daylight left. The Pine Grove Inn was 20 minutes away. I'd passed it 100 times, never thinking I'd need it. But someone knew something. Someone was trying to warn me. And every instinct I'd honed over 7 decades of life was screaming that I should listen. I grabbed my purse, stuffed the property deed back in the drawer exactly as Rachel had left it, and took one last look around my home. Then I locked the door behind me and drove away from the only place I'd ever truly belonged, toward a cheap motel and an unknown future, with nothing but a stranger's warning and my own growing dread to guide me. The real question wasn't whether I should go. It was what Rachel had planned for tonight, and what I'd narrowly escaped by leaving. Behind me, my farmhouse disappeared in the rearview mirror, and I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The Pine Grove Inn smelled of stale coffee and pine air freshener, a combination that reminded me of hospital waiting rooms. I signed the register as Helen Walsh, using my mother's maiden name, and paid cash for 3 nights. The clerk, a young man with acne scars and tired eyes, barely looked at me as he handed over a key attached to a plastic diamond-shaped tag. Room 107 was exactly what I'd expected. 2 double beds with faded floral bedspreads, a television bolted to the dresser, and curtains that had once been white but were now the color of old newspaper. I locked the door, fastened the chain, and sat on the edge of the bed closest to the window, my entire body shaking. My phone remained silent. No more messages from my mysterious warning angel. I tried calling the number, but it went straight to a generic voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. What was I doing? I was a 70-year-old woman hiding in a cheap motel because of a text message from a stranger. Thomas would say I was being paranoid. Rachel would smile that terrible smile and suggest maybe it was time to consider options for someone my age who was seeing threats where there were none. But I'd seen the property deed. I'd felt the wrongness of my own home invaded and reorganized. And I'd learned, over 7 decades, to trust the cold feeling in my gut that said something was very, very wrong. I didn't sleep that night. Every car door slamming, every footstep in the hallway outside, sent adrenaline shooting through my veins. I kept my phone clutched in my hand, willing it to vibrate with answers. At 7:30 the next morning, it finally did. Good morning, Roxanne. I hope you're safe. We need to meet. There's a diner called Rosie's Kitchen on Main Street in Oakville, about 30 minutes from where you are. Can you be there at 10 a.m.? Come alone. Tell no one. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every reasonable part of my brain screamed that this was foolish, dangerous, exactly the kind of thing you saw in news stories about elderly people being scammed. But another part of me, the part that had survived Harold's death and learned to manage a farm alone, the part that had raised a son and buried parents and navigated 70 years of life's complications, knew that something was deeply wrong at home. I'll be there, I typed back. I showered in the cramped bathroom, dressed in the same clothes from yesterday, and realized I'd need to go back to the house at some point for more things. But not yet. Not until I understood what I was dealing with. The drive to Oakville took me through countryside I'd known my whole life, past farms where I'd attended weddings and funerals, past the church where Harold and I had married. Everything looked the same, but I felt like I was seeing it all through new eyes that now looked for threats in familiar places. Rosie's Kitchen was the kind of diner that had been serving the same menu since 1975. I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a booth in the back corner where I could watch the door. The waitress, a woman about my age with kind eyes, poured me coffee without asking. At exactly 10 o'clock, a woman walked through the door, and my breath caught in my throat. She was perhaps 45, with dark hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing a professional pantsuit that looked expensive, but it was her eyes that struck me. They were red-rimmed, exhausted, and filled with a kind of desperate determination I recognized in my own mirror lately. She spotted me immediately and walked straight to my booth, sliding into the seat across from me. "Roxanne," she said quietly, "thank you for coming. My name is Diana Price. I was married to Rachel's brother, Kevin." "Was?" I asked carefully. "He died 8 months ago. Car accident." Her voice was flat, emotionless, but her hands trembled as she wrapped them around the coffee mug the waitress brought over. Except it wasn't an accident. The diner suddenly felt too hot, too bright. "What do you mean?" Diana reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder, setting it on the table between us. Kevin inherited his parents' estate 2 years ago when they died. A house, some land, about $800,000 in investments. Rachel was furious. She'd expected to inherit equally with Kevin, but their parents' will left everything to him, with just a small bequest to her. I didn't touch the folder. "I don't understand what this has to do with me." 6 months after Kevin inherited, strange things started happening. Papers going missing, documents that needed his signature showing up already signed, financial transfers he didn't authorize. He started to suspect Rachel was forging his signature, trying to get access to his accounts. He was planning to go to the police. Diana's voice cracked. Then his car went off the road. Brake failure, they said. Kevin was meticulous about car maintenance. Those brakes had been serviced 2 weeks before. "You think Rachel—" I couldn't finish the sentence. I think Rachel killed my husband for money she believed should have been hers. Diana opened the folder with shaking hands. And I think she's doing the same thing to you. Inside were photocopies of documents, bank statements, property records. I recognized some of them. They were mine. My property deed, my bank account information, my insurance policies. How did you get these? I whispered. Rachel has a home office. After Kevin died, I became obsessed, I suppose you'd call it. I needed to know if I was crazy or if my husband had really been murdered. So I waited until I knew she and Thomas would be out, and I broke into their house. Diana's laugh was bitter. Trespassing and breaking and entering. I could go to jail. But what I found? She pulled out more papers. Property transfer forms, partially filled out. Power of attorney documents with my name on them, unsigned. A printed email from someone named H. Morrison, discussing expediting the incompetency evaluation. H. Morrison, I said slowly. That's not Ed Parker, my lawyer. Ed's first name is Edward. No, H. Morrison is Henry Morrison, Edward's cousin. He was disbarred 3 years ago for forging estate documents. He and Rachel went to high school together. Diana pulled out a photograph, a yearbook picture showing a young Rachel with her arm around a thin boy with dark hair. They've stayed in touch. My coffee had gone cold. I pushed it away, feeling sick. You're telling me that Rachel is planning to have me declared incompetent and steal my property? I'm telling you that Rachel has a pattern. She targets family members with assets. She isolates them, makes them seem confused or forgetful to others, manipulates documents, and eventually either gets them to sign everything over or has them declared unable to manage their own affairs. With Kevin, she got impatient. But with you, Diana's eyes were intense, burning. With you, she's been more careful, more methodical. I've been watching her for 3 months, ever since I found these documents. The visits to your house, always alone. The way she talks about you to Thomas, always suggesting you're declining or forgetting things. Thomas, I breathed. Does Thomas know? I don't think so. Not yet. I think Rachel has convinced him that she's being helpful, that she's worried about you. Men can be blind when it comes to their wives, especially when those wives are as good at manipulation as Rachel. Diana leaned forward. But Roxanne, listen to me carefully. She's escalating. Last week she met with Henry Morrison at a coffee shop downtown. I followed her there. They talked for over an hour looking at documents. Your documents. That's why you warned me not to spend the night. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was too monstrous to fully believe. I've been parked outside your property on and off for the past 2 weeks watching. Yesterday afternoon, after Rachel left your house, a man arrived. Late 30s, wearing work clothes. He went around the side of your house toward the gas line. I took pictures. She pulled out her phone, showed me images of a man in a blue jacket crouching near the side of my house. He was there for 20 minutes. When he left, I followed him to a gas company van parked down the road. Except when I called the gas company later. They said they had no service calls scheduled for your address. The room spun. You think she was going to... I think if you'd spent last night in that house, there would have been a tragic accident. An elderly woman alone, gas leak, didn't wake up in time. So very sad. And her devoted daughter-in-law and son would inherit everything, already having power of attorney papers ready to sign if needed. I couldn't breathe. My own daughter-in-law had been planning to murder me. Why didn't you go to the police? I managed to ask. Diana's expression turned bitter. With what? Photocopies I obtained by breaking into her house? Speculation about my husband's death that the official investigation ruled accidental? Suspicions about a gas company worker I can't prove was doing anything wrong? Rachel is careful, Roxanne. Everything she does has plausible deniability. She's helpful. She's concerned. She's the devoted daughter-in-law taking care of her aging mother-in-law. I'd look like a jealous, grief-crazed widow trying to blame someone for my husband's accident. But now there are 2 of us, I said slowly. Now there are 2 of us, Diana agreed. And you're the intended victim, which gives you standing to investigate, to ask questions, to protect yourself. I can't stop her alone. But together, if we're smart about this. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. Mom, tried calling the house this morning. You okay? Rachel said you seemed confused yesterday. Call me. I showed Diana the message. She nodded grimly. It's starting. She's setting the narrative. If something happens to you, or if you try to accuse her of anything, Thomas will already believe you're confused, declining, maybe even paranoid. I need to document everything, I said, my mind suddenly clear despite the horror of it all. I need evidence. Real evidence. We need to be careful, Diana warned. If Rachel suspects that I've contacted you, or that you know anything, she'll either disappear or she'll accelerate her plans. And Roxanne. She grabbed my hand across the table, her grip desperate. This woman killed my husband. She will kill you if she thinks you're in her way. We can't underestimate her. The waitress came by to refill our coffee, and we fell silent. After she left, I pulled out my own phone and opened the camera. Tell me everything you know, I said. Every detail, every document, every meeting you've witnessed. I'm going to record this. Then we're going to figure out how to stop her. Diana nodded, and for the next hour, she walked me through 3 months of surveillance, investigation, and growing horror. I recorded every word, backed up the recording to 3 different cloud services, and then forwarded copies to an email address I'd created years ago and never told anyone about. When we finally left the diner, I had a plan forming in my mind, but I also had a text from Rachel waiting on my phone. Roxanne, Thomas is worried about you. We'd love to have you stay with us for Christmas, just until we know you're safe and settled. Please call me. The trap was closing, but this time I was ready to fight back. What do we do now? Diana asked as we stood by our cars in the parking lot. I looked at her. This woman who'd lost her husband and was risking everything to stop the person who'd killed him. Then I thought of my own son, manipulated and blind to the monster he'd married. And I thought of Harold, who'd always said that the best defense was preparation and patience. Now, I said quietly, we give Rachel exactly what she thinks she wants. We make her believe she's winning. And while she's celebrating, we build a case so solid that even Thomas will have to see the truth. That's dangerous, Diana warned. Living is dangerous, I replied. But I've made it 70 years by being smarter than people expected. Rachel thinks I'm just a confused old woman. Let's show her exactly how wrong she is. I didn't return Rachel's text immediately. Instead, I spent that afternoon at the county courthouse, a grand old building with marble floors that echoed with every footstep. The records office was in the basement, staffed by a woman named Karen who'd worked there for 30 years and remembered when Harold and I had first filed our property deed. Roxanne, she exclaimed when she saw me. Goodness, I haven't seen you in ages. How are you managing? Karen, I need to see every document filed regarding my property in the last 6 months, I said, keeping my voice steady. Everything, even preliminary filings or requests. Her smile faded at my tone. Is everything all right? I'm not sure yet. That's what I'm trying to find out. She led me to a computer terminal and pulled up the records. What I saw made my blood run cold. 3 weeks ago, someone had filed a preliminary inquiry about transferring my property title. The request had been made by Henry Morrison on behalf of the family of Roxanne Hayes in anticipation of pending incompetency proceedings. It wasn't a formal filing yet, just a query about the process, the paperwork required, the timeline involved. Did I authorize this? I asked, though I knew the answer. Karen shook her head slowly. It says here that Henry Morrison is representing your son, Thomas Hayes, as next of kin. But no, you didn't sign anything. This is just an informational request. They can't actually transfer anything without your signature or a court order declaring you incompetent. Can you print everything related to this? And Karen, I grabbed her hand. Please don't mention to anyone that I was here asking about this. Anyone at all. She studied my face, and I saw understanding dawn in her eyes. She'd worked in public records long enough to recognize the signs of family manipulation. Of course, Roxanne, of course. I left with a folder full of documents and a sick feeling in my stomach. Thomas's name was on those papers. Whether he knew it or not, he was already part of Rachel's plan. My phone rang as I walked to my car. Thomas. I let it go to voicemail, not ready yet to hear his voice, knowing I'd hear Rachel's influence in every word. The voicemail notification appeared moments later. I listened to it in my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel. "Mom, please call me back. Rachel's really worried about you. She said you seemed disoriented yesterday, and now you're not answering your phone. I'm worried too. Listen, we want you to come stay with us for the holidays. We have that spare room, and Rachel's an amazing cook. We could really keep an eye on you. Make sure you're eating right, taking your medications. Please, Mom, call me back. Keep an eye on me." The words sounded so innocent, so loving, but I heard the trap in them now. I drove back to the motel, my mind racing. Diana had given me her number, told me to call any time. I needed to show her what I'd found. But as I pulled into the Pine Grove Inn parking lot, I saw something that made my heart stop. Thomas's truck was parked 3 spaces down from my room. I sat frozen in my car, watching the door to room 107. How had he found me? I'd used a fake name, paid cash. Unless, my phone. They could track my phone. Even as the thought formed, my phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Mom, I know you're here. I can see your car. Please just talk to me. I'm worried about you." I had no choice. I got out of my car slowly, every muscle tense, and walked toward my room. Thomas stepped out before I reached the door. My son, my only child, looking at me with concern that might be genuine or might be Rachel's poison already working through his veins. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked. "What are you doing here? Why didn't you go home last night? How did you find me?" I asked quietly. "I got worried when you didn't answer your phone. I used the Find My Phone app. You're on my family plan, remember?" He took a step toward me. "Mom, talk to me. Rachel said you seemed really confused yesterday. And now you're hiding in a motel under a fake name." "Yes, I checked with the front desk. What's going on?" "You checked my registration?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Because I'm worried." Thomas's face flushed with frustration. "You're 70 years old, living alone on that farm. Rachel's been trying to help you, and you run away to a motel? Mom, do you understand how this looks?" There it was. The seed Rachel had planted, already taking root. I could see it in his eyes. He was questioning my judgment, my mental state. This was exactly what she wanted. "Thomas, I need you to listen to me very carefully," I began, but he interrupted. "I've been listening, Mom. I've been listening to you insist you're fine while your bills pile up and your kitchen gets cluttered and you forget to return phone calls. Rachel's been nothing but helpful, and you treat her like she's some kind of enemy. My bills are not piling up. My kitchen was perfectly fine. And I don't forget to return phone calls. I choose not to answer sometimes." I kept my voice level, but my hands were shaking. "Thomas, has Rachel talked to you about having me declared incompetent?" His face changed just slightly. A flicker of something. Guilt, knowledge, or surprise. I couldn't tell which. "Mom, no one's trying to have you declared incompetent. But Rachel did suggest that maybe we should talk to a doctor about memory screening, just to be safe. There's no shame in it. Lots of people your age. I don't need memory screening. I need you to listen to me." I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app, but Thomas grabbed my wrist. "What are you doing? Are you recording this?" His grip was gentle but firm. "Mom, this is exactly what Rachel was talking about. This paranoid behavior. It's not normal." I jerked my hand away. "Paranoid? Thomas, did you know that Rachel's brother Kevin died 8 months ago in a suspicious car accident? Kevin's death was tragic, but it was investigated. Brake failure. It was an accident, Mom. Did you know that Kevin had inherited his parents' entire estate, and that Rachel was furious about being left out of the will? Did you know that he was planning to go to the police because someone was forging his signature on financial documents?" Thomas's expression hardened. "Where are you getting this information? Who have you been talking to?" "Diana Price, Kevin's widow. That woman is mentally unstable." Thomas's voice rose. "She's been harassing Rachel for months, making wild accusations. Rachel's been terrified of her. We almost filed a restraining order." My heart sank. Of course Rachel had gotten ahead of this too. She'd already discredited Diana in Thomas's eyes, made her seem like a crazy, grieving widow. Thomas, please. Just look at these documents. I pulled out the folder from the courthouse. Henry Morrison filed an inquiry about transferring my property, using your name. Did you authorize that? He took the papers reluctantly, and I watched his face as he read. Confusion flickered across his features, then cleared into something that looked like relief. Mom, I know about this. Rachel showed me. Henry is helping us understand the legal process for if, and only if, something happened to you. It's called estate planning. It's responsible. Rachel's father had dementia, and his family wasn't prepared. She doesn't want us to be caught off guard if you start to decline. If I start to decline? My voice shook. Thomas, I'm not declining. I'm being set up. Listen to yourself. He ran his hands through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. You're hiding in motels, accusing Rachel of conspiracy, claiming that a legal inquiry about estate planning is somehow sinister. Mom, you sound paranoid. You sound exactly like someone who needs help. And there it was. The trap had closed perfectly. Anything I said to defend myself would only sound like more proof that I was losing my mind. Does Rachel know you're here? I asked quietly. I called her when I tracked your phone. She's on her way. She wants to help, Mom. We both do. You called her. I felt the walls closing in. Thomas, you have to trust me, please. Just give me 3 days. 3 days to prove that I'm not paranoid, that I'm not confused. Can you do that? 3 days for what? To show you the truth about who you married. His face went cold. That's enough. Rachel is my wife. She's been nothing but patient with you. Nothing but kind, and you're treating her like a criminal. I think maybe you do need to come stay with us, just for a little while, until we can get you seen by a doctor. And if I refuse, then I'll have to take legal steps to make sure you're safe. Mom, I don't want to do that. But if you're not capable of making sound decisions anymore, I am perfectly capable, I said. But my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. A silver sedan pulled into the parking lot. Rachel. She got out of the car, her face a perfect mask of concern as she hurried toward us. Roxanne! She reached out as if to embrace me, but I stepped back. Her expression shifted. Hurt, wounded, a perfect performance. Oh, Roxanne. We've been so worried. Thomas told me you were here and I just had to come make sure you were all right. I'm fine, Rachel. You can both leave now. Mom, Thomas said, his voice heavy with false patience. We're not leaving you here alone. Rachel pulled out her phone, and I saw her fingers moving across the screen. Thomas, maybe we should call Dr. Brennan. He could do a house call just to check on Roxanne. Make sure she's okay. I don't need a doctor. My voice was rising and I hated how it made me sound. Shrill, irrational, exactly like someone who wasn't okay. See, this is what I've been telling you, Rachel said softly to Thomas, as if I wasn't standing right there. The aggression, the paranoia, these are classic signs. Classic signs of what? I demanded. She turned to me with those cold eyes hidden behind a mask of compassion. Of cognitive decline, Roxanne. Of someone who needs help but doesn't recognize it. It's very common at your age. My age? I laughed, but it came out bitter. You mean old enough to be vulnerable? Old enough to be manipulated and murdered for property? Thomas's face went pale. Mom, stop. You need to stop right now. She killed Kevin. The words exploded out of me. She killed her own brother for inheritance money, and now she's trying to do the same thing to me. Rachel's eyes widened, and tears, actual tears, began streaming down her face. Thomas, I can't do this anymore. She's getting worse. What if she becomes violent? What if she hurts herself? Thomas put his arm around Rachel's shoulders, and the look he gave me was full of pity and fear. Fear of me. His own mother. Mom, I think you need to come with us. Right now. We'll take you home and Dr. Brennan can meet us there. I'm not going anywhere with her. I backed toward my car. Mom, don't make me call the police for a wellness check. Thomas's voice was gentle but firm. Please, just come with us. Let the doctor examine you. If you're fine, then you're fine. But if you're not? My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from Diana. Get out. Now. Rachel filed an emergency petition for temporary guardianship this morning. Judge Reynolds. He signs anything she asks. If she gets you to a doctor she controls, you're done. I looked at Rachel, and for just a fraction of a second her mask slipped. I saw triumph in her eyes. She knew about the petition. She'd orchestrated all of this. Thomas finding me, the confrontation, my irrational behavior witnessed by my own son. I need to use the restroom, I said suddenly. Then we can talk about this. I just need a minute. Thomas hesitated, then nodded. Okay. But Mom, don't do anything foolish. We're just trying to help you. I walked into the motel room, closed the door, and immediately went to the bathroom window. It was small, but I was thin enough. I pushed it open, grabbed my purse with all my documents, and climbed out into the cold December afternoon. Behind me, I heard Thomas knocking on the door. Mom? Mom, are you okay in there? I ran to my car, my arthritic knees screaming in protest, started the engine, and peeled out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw Thomas burst out of the motel room, Rachel beside him, both of them running toward their vehicles. My phone rang. Diana. I answered on speaker as I drove. Roxanne, where are you? Heading north on Route 50. They're following me. Diana, she filed for guardianship. I know. I have a contact at the courthouse. That's why I texted you. The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. If you don't show up, Reynolds will rule in her favor by default. If you do show up and act erratic, he'll rule in her favor anyway. Roxanne, she's boxed you in perfectly. What do I do? I was driving faster than I ever had, my heart hammering against my ribs. You run, Diana said. And we find evidence so solid that even a corrupt judge can't ignore it. I'm on my way to Rachel's house right now. She and Thomas are both with you, which means their house is empty. I'm going to find something, anything that proves what she's done. But Roxanne, you have to stay free long enough for me to find it. Diana, breaking into her house again. You could go to jail. And you could end up dead or locked away in a facility while Rachel sells your farm out from under you. We're past worrying about breaking and entering. Her voice was fierce. This woman killed my husband. I'm not letting her kill you too. The line went dead. In my rearview mirror, Thomas's truck was gaining on me. Rachel's sedan right behind him. I had nowhere to go, no plan, and a guardianship hearing in less than 24 hours that would determine if I'd spend the rest of my life under the control of a woman who wanted me dead. But I also had something Rachel didn't expect. 70 years of survival instinct and a widow's rage that burned cold and patient as winter. The chase had begun, and only one of us would still be standing when it ended. I drove for 20 minutes before I realized I had no destination. Every turn took me deeper into countryside I'd known my whole life, but it all looked foreign now, threatening. Thomas's truck had fallen back. Either he'd lost me in the maze of rural roads, or he was calling in reinforcements. My phone rang again. Not Diana this time, but a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Hayes? A man's voice, professional and cold. This is Officer Derek Mitchell with the County Sheriff's Department. Your son Thomas has reported you as a vulnerable adult who may be experiencing a mental health crisis. He's concerned for your safety and the safety of others on the road. Ma'am, I need you to pull over and tell me your location. My hands tightened on the wheel. I'm fine, officer. There's no crisis. Ma'am, running from family members who are trying to help you, driving erratically, making accusations against your daughter-in-law. These are all concerning behaviors. We just want to make sure you're safe. If you could tell me where you are. I hung up. My heart was racing so fast I thought it might burst. Rachel had already gotten to the police. Of course she had. She'd probably been setting this up for weeks, establishing a paper trail of a confused old woman whose family was desperately trying to help her. Another call, immediately. I didn't recognize this number either. I let it go to voicemail, then another call, and another. They were trying to keep me on the phone, probably tracking the signal. I powered down my phone completely and threw it on the passenger seat. Without GPS, without any way for Diana to reach me, I was completely alone. I turned onto a side road that led to the old Hutchinson property, abandoned for 15 years since old man Hutchinson died and his kids scattered to different states. The driveway was overgrown, barely visible from the road. I pulled in behind what was left of a barn, my car hidden from the main road by dead vegetation and rotting wood. I sat there in the cold, my breath fogging in the December air, trying to think. The guardianship hearing was tomorrow morning at 9. If I didn't show up, Rachel won. If I did show up without evidence, looking like a woman who'd fled from police and family, Rachel won. And Diana was breaking into Rachel's house right now, risking arrest, possibly her freedom, to find something, anything, that would prove what Rachel had done. The smart thing would be to turn myself in, explain everything calmly to the authorities. But I'd seen Thomas's face. I'd heard the officer's voice. They'd already decided I was the problem. Rachel's manipulation had been too thorough, too patient, too perfect. I had to wait until Diana contacted me. But without my phone, how would she find me? The old Hutchinson house loomed ahead, dark windows like empty eyes. I remembered coming here for Eleanor Hutchinson's funeral reception, back when Harold was alive. The house had been full of life then, full of neighbors and casseroles and stories. Now, it was just another corpse of the rural landscape, slowly being reclaimed by nature. I got out of the car, my joints stiff from tension and cold. If I was going to wait here, I might as well wait somewhere warmer than my car. The back door of the house had a broken lock. I'd noticed it years ago when checking on the property for the estate lawyer. Inside, the house smelled of mold and mouse droppings, but it was shelter. I settled into what had been the kitchen, still furnished with a table and chairs left behind by the Hutchinson children. Through the window, I could see my car, and beyond it, the road. If anyone came looking, I'd see them first. Hours passed. The winter sun set early, plunging everything into darkness. I didn't dare turn on any lights, so I sat in the cold and the dark, watching shadows move across the walls and trying not to think about what might be happening to Diana. Around 8 o'clock, I saw headlights on the main road. They slowed near the driveway, and my heart stopped. A sheriff's patrol car. It crept past, spotlight sweeping the overgrown fields. They were looking for me, searching every abandoned property in the county. The patrol car moved on, but I knew it was only a matter of time. They'd be systematic, thorough. Eventually, someone would check this property more carefully. I needed my phone. I needed to know if Diana had found anything. But turning it on would be like sending up a flare. They'd triangulate my position within minutes. A sound outside made me freeze. Footsteps. Careful, quiet footsteps crunching on gravel and dead leaves. Not the heavy boots of a police officer, but lighter steps, deliberate and cautious. I crouched behind the kitchen counter, my heart hammering. The back door creaked open, the same broken lock I'd used. Someone was inside the house. Roxanne. A whisper. Female. Roxanne, if you're here, it's Diana. Don't run. I stood up slowly, every muscle tense. Diana emerged from the shadows, her face pale and strained, carrying a laptop bag over her shoulder. How did you find me? I whispered back. I didn't. I've been driving around for 2 hours, checking every abandoned property within a 10-mile radius of where your phone signal last pinged. This was the 5th place I tried. She moved to the window, peering out carefully. We don't have much time. They're searching everywhere. Thomas filed a missing persons report, and Rachel's been on every local news station playing the worried daughter-in-law. She's good, Roxanne. Really good. She even cried on camera. Did you find anything at her house? Diana's smile was grim and triumphant. Oh, I found something. Multiple somethings. She set the laptop bag on the table, pulled out not a laptop but a stack of documents and a small digital recorder. Rachel keeps excellent records. Too excellent. She's so confident, so sure that she's smarter than everyone else, that she documented everything. She spread the documents across the table, and even in the dim light from the window, I could see what she'd found. Bank statements showing transfers from Kevin's accounts to offshore accounts under Rachel's control. Emails between Rachel and Henry Morrison discussing the Hayes situation and neutralizing the old woman before she becomes a problem. A handwritten timeline in Rachel's own handwriting, detailing every visit to my house, every conversation with Thomas, every step of her plan to establish my incompetence. She kept a journal, Diana said, her voice shaking with rage. like she was proud of it, like it was some kind of accomplishment to document how she was going to steal from you and probably kill you. I picked up the journal, an expensive leather-bound book, and opened it to a random page. Rachel's neat handwriting filled the lines. December 10th. Another successful visit to the farmhouse. Roxanne remains trusting and naive. Thomas completely believes my concerns about her declining mental state. I've now photographed all relevant documents. Henry confirms the guardianship petition will be filed next week. Judge Reynolds is reliably corrupt and will sign anything with the right incentive. Once I have guardianship, the property transfer will take less than a month. Thomas will inherit, and I control Thomas. Roxanne will either accept assisted living gracefully, or will have to arrange another accident like Kevin's. The brake line method worked perfectly for him. Quick, efficient, and easily explained. If necessary, I can replicate it. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the journal. She wrote it down. She actually wrote down that she murdered Kevin. She's a narcissist, Diana said flatly. She thinks she's untouchable. She thinks everyone around her is too stupid to ever catch her. But Roxanne, we have a problem. I broke into her house to get this. Nothing I found is admissible in court. It's all fruit of the poisonous tree, illegally obtained evidence. Then what good is it? It's good for convincing people who aren't bound by rules of evidence. It's good for making Thomas see the truth. It's good for going to the FBI with a pattern of financial fraud and possible murder that crosses state lines. Diana pulled out the digital recorder. And I recorded everything with my phone before I took it. The documents in place, the location, everything. If they try to say I planted evidence, I have time-stamped video showing it was already there. But you're still admitting to breaking and entering. I don't care anymore. Diana's eyes were fierce in the darkness. I'm done playing by rules that only protect people like Rachel. Kevin is dead. You're being hunted like a criminal in your own town. I'll take my chances with a jury if it means stopping her. A sound outside made us both freeze. Car engines, multiple vehicles, coming down the main road. The vehicles stopped, and I heard car doors opening. Voices. Checked this property yet? Not thoroughly. Just a drive-by earlier. Want to take a closer look? Police. They were going to search the house. The car, I whispered urgently. They'll see my car behind the barn. Diana grabbed the documents, shoving them back into her bag. There's a root cellar. I saw the door when I came in. Old houses like this always have them. We found it in the corner of the kitchen, a trap door hidden under a rotting rug. Diana pulled it open, revealing stone steps leading down into darkness. I climbed down first, my old knees protesting every step, and Diana followed, pulling the trapdoor closed above us just as we heard the back door crash open. Sheriff's Department. If anyone's in here, make yourself known. We stood in absolute darkness, pressed against cold stone walls that smelled of earth and decay. I could hear footsteps above us, multiple sets of boots walking through the house. Check every room. Old lady's car has to be around here somewhere. Why are we even looking for her? Son said she's just confused, not dangerous. Daughter-in-law seems to think she might hurt herself. Besides, it's better to find her before she freezes to death in one of these old buildings. They were being careful, thorough. I heard them opening closets, checking rooms, their flashlights sweeping across floors and ceilings. Then one of them said, "Hey, what's this rug doing here? Everything else in this place is covered in dust, but this rug's been moved recently." My heart stopped. Diana's hand found mine in the darkness, squeezing tight. Probably just a raccoon or something dragging it around. These old places are full of animals. Yeah, but look, there's a crack in the floor under it. Like a door or something. Footsteps approached directly above us. The rug was pulled away, and I heard one of them kneel down. It's a root cellar. Old houses like this always had them. Worth checking? A pause that lasted a lifetime. Then, nah. If she's 70 years old, she's not climbing down into any root cellars. Let's check the barn. Cars probably hidden out there somewhere. The footsteps retreated. We heard them go outside, heard them searching the barn and finding my car. Their radios crackled. We've got her vehicle. Silver Honda Civic, license plate matches. She's on foot somewhere nearby. Copy that. Expanding search radius. Get some more units out here. More vehicles arrived. I could hear them organizing, dividing up areas to search, setting up a perimeter. We were trapped in the root cellar, surrounded by police, with evidence that proved Rachel was a murderer but couldn't be used in court, and a guardianship hearing that would start in less than 12 hours. Diana leaned close, whispering directly into my ear. We wait until they move the search outward. Then we take my car and drive straight to the FBI field office in Richmond. It's 2 hours away. We show them everything, tell them everything, and let them investigate properly. They'll arrest you for breaking and entering. I know, but they'll also have to investigate Rachel. Once the FBI starts looking at her, at Kevin's death, at the financial irregularities, at Judge Reynolds, the whole thing unravels. Rachel can't manipulate federal investigators the way she manipulates local police. And the guardianship hearing? You miss it. Rachel gets temporary guardianship. But it won't matter, because by tomorrow afternoon, she'll be under federal investigation for murder and fraud. Temporary guardianship means nothing if the guardian is arrested. It was a terrible plan. It meant letting Rachel win, at least temporarily. It meant Diana would face criminal charges. It meant I'd be declared incompetent, even if just for a few days or weeks. But it was the only plan we had. We waited in that cold, dark cellar for 3 hours while police searched the area around us. My legs cramped, my back ached, and I thought about Harold, who'd survived 2 tours in the Pacific during World War II by learning patience and waiting for the right moment to move. Finally, around midnight, the search moved outward. We heard the vehicles depart, heard them setting up checkpoints on the main roads, heard them calling in search dogs. Diana opened the trapdoor slowly, listening. The house was empty. We climbed out, every joint in my body screaming, and made our way carefully to the back door. Diana's car was parked a quarter-mile away, hidden in a stand of trees. We walked through the darkness, avoiding roads, moving slowly so we wouldn't make noise. It took 30 minutes to reach her car, and by the time we got there, I was shaking with exhaustion and cold. But we'd made it. We had evidence. We had a plan. Diana started the car and pulled out onto a back road that would eventually connect to the highway. In 2 hours, we'd be at the FBI office. In 3 hours, Rachel's perfect plan would start to crumble. Roxanne, Diana said as we drove, when this is over, when Rachel is in prison and you have your life back, what will you do? I thought about my farmhouse, violated and reorganized. I thought about Thomas, manipulated and blind. I thought about 7 decades of life that had taught me one essential truth. Survival isn't about strength or youth. It's about patience, wisdom, and refusing to let cruelty win. I'm going to forgive my son, I said quietly, and then I'm going to make sure he understands exactly how close he came to helping murder his own mother. Not because I want him to suffer, but because he needs to learn that love without discernment is just another word for enabling. Diana nodded. Good. He deserves to live with that knowledge. Behind us, the lights of search vehicles swept the darkness. Ahead of us, somewhere in the distance, was justice. We just had to survive long enough to reach it. We never made it to Richmond. 20 miles from the FBI field office, Diana's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face went white. It's my lawyer, she said, pulling over to the shoulder. I didn't tell him I was doing this tonight. He shouldn't be calling at 2 in the morning unless... She answered on speaker. Robert? Diana? Where are you? The lawyer's voice was urgent, professional worry bleeding through. The police just left my house. They have a warrant for your arrest. Breaking and entering, theft, stalking. Rachel Hayes filed charges an hour ago. She says you broke into her home and stole personal property. How did she know? Diana's voice shook. How did she know I was there? She was chasing Roxanne with Thomas. She couldn't have been home. Security cameras, Diana. Rachel had security cameras installed throughout her house last month. She has footage of you breaking in, going through her office, taking documents. She's claiming you're obsessed with her, that you've been harassing her since Kevin died, and that you're now involving Mrs. Hayes in your delusions. My stomach dropped. Of course Rachel had cameras. She'd probably installed them specifically for this, knowing Diana was watching her, waiting for Diana to make exactly this mistake. Robert, the documents I took prove she murdered Kevin. They prove she's trying to steal Roxanne Hayes' property. We were bringing them to the FBI. Diana, listen to me very carefully. Robert's voice was firm. Those documents are inadmissible. Anything you found is fruit of the poisonous tree. You've made any prosecution against Rachel much more complicated because now her lawyers will argue you planted evidence, tampered with files, and fabricated documents out of grief and obsession, and a judge may refuse to use anything that can't be independently verified. You've played right into her hands. The phone slipped from Diana's fingers. I picked it up. Mr. Brennan? I said. This is Roxanne Hayes. What Diana is saying is true. Rachel has been planning to… Mrs. Hayes, with all due respect, I'm not your lawyer and I can't advise you. But I will say this. The guardianship hearing is in 7 hours. If you're not there, Judge Reynolds will grant Rachel temporary guardianship by default. If you are there, with Diana Price, who's now a wanted fugitive accused of stalking Rachel, you'll look exactly like what Rachel has been telling everyone you are. A confused elderly woman who's been manipulated by a mentally unstable widow. Then we've lost, I said quietly. Not necessarily. Go to the hearing, go alone. Act calm, rational, and competent. Bring your own lawyer. Do you have one? Ed Parker. Good. Ed's solid. Tell him everything. Show him what Diana found, and let him decide how to proceed. He might be able to introduce some of it as evidence if he can establish an independent basis for suspicion. But Diana needs to turn herself in, and you need to separate yourself from her right now, or Rachel wins everything. The line went dead. Diana was crying silently, her hands gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles were white. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I've ruined everything. I thought I was being careful. I thought… You were brave, I said firmly. And you were right. Rachel did document everything. The evidence exists. We just have to find another way to use it. There is no other way. Robert's right. I've destroyed any legal case against her. I sat back in my seat, my mind racing. 7 hours until the hearing. Diana facing arrest. Evidence that proved everything but couldn't be used in court. Thomas believing his wife over his mother. Rachel so close to winning she could taste it. And then, like Harold's voice whispering from memory, I heard it. The best victories are the ones your enemy hands you herself. Diana, I said slowly, does Rachel know we're together right now? I don't know. Maybe. The police know my car. They probably have an APB out for it. But Rachel doesn't know we're heading to the FBI. As far as she knows, we're just running. Hiding. So she thinks she's won. She has you facing arrest. She has me looking like a fugitive. She has the guardianship hearing this morning, where I'll either not show up or show up looking desperate and irrational. She's so confident right now that she's probably not being careful anymore. Diana turned to look at me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that narcissists make mistakes when they think they've already won. I'm thinking that Rachel has spent months building a careful facade, but now that she's this close to victory, she might let that facade slip. I pulled out my phone, still powered off to avoid tracking. I need you to take me somewhere. Somewhere Rachel won't expect. Where? The courthouse. Right now, before the sun comes up. Ed Parker lives 3 blocks from the courthouse. We wake him up, show him everything Diana found, and let him start building a legal strategy. Then you turn yourself in, but you do it through Ed, with a statement prepared, with everything documented properly. That doesn't solve the admissibility problem. No, but it does something else. It forces Rachel to respond. If we're at the courthouse at dawn, if Ed files emergency motions, if we make noise instead of hiding, Rachel has to react. And when she reacts under pressure, she makes mistakes. Diana wiped her eyes, considering. It's risky. We could both end up arrested before the hearing even starts. We're already at risk. But right now, we're reacting to Rachel's plan. I want to make her react to ours. Diana started the car. Ed Parker's house it is. We drove through the darkness, avoiding main roads, taking the long way around. The courthouse town was small enough that it had no late-night traffic, no witnesses to see Diana's car pulling up outside a modest colonial house at 3 a.m. Ed Parker answered his door in a bathrobe, looking alarmed until he recognized me. Roxanne? What in heaven's name? Ed, I need you to listen very carefully, and I need you to believe me even though everything I'm about to tell you sounds insane. We sat in his kitchen for 2 hours. I told him everything while Diana showed him every document, every page of Rachel's journal, every piece of evidence. Ed's expression shifted from skepticism to shock to cold professional fury. "This is the most comprehensively documented crime I've ever seen," he said finally. "And also the most inadmissible evidence I've ever seen. Diana, you've put yourself in serious legal jeopardy." "I know," Diana said quietly. "But," Ed continued, "Roxanne hasn't. Roxanne has been the victim of a conspiracy, and now she has knowledge of that conspiracy from a third party. I can't use the physical documents Diana stole, but I can use Roxanne's testimony about what she learned, witnessed, and suspected. I can subpoena Rachel's financial records through legitimate channels now that we know what to look for. And I can file an emergency motion to postpone the guardianship hearing pending a criminal investigation. Will Judge Reynolds grant that?" I asked. Ed's smile was grim. "Judge Reynolds is about to have a very bad morning, because I'm not just filing a motion with him. I'm simultaneously filing a complaint with the State Judicial Ethics Board about his relationship with Henry Morrison, and I'm requesting that the guardianship case be transferred to a different judge due to evidence of impropriety. You can do that? I can try. And even if I fail, I'm making enough noise that Rachel's plan falls apart. She needs this to be quiet, to be a simple case of a concerned daughter-in-law and a declining elderly woman. If it becomes a circus, if there are ethics complaints and criminal referrals and emergency motions, she can't maintain control." Diana stood up. "Then I should go turn myself in. Get that part over with." "Not yet," Ed said sharply. "First, we go to the hearing together. All 3 of us. Diana, you walk in voluntarily with your attorney. That's me, as of now. And you present yourself to the bailiff before the hearing starts. You make it clear you're not a fugitive, you're a witness. You surrender voluntarily and cooperatively, which looks very different from being dragged in." "Will they let her stay for the hearing?" I asked. "Probably not. But the point isn't for Diana to testify. The point is for Rachel to see her there, calm and represented, not panicking. The point is to rattle Rachel right before she has to perform for the judge." The sky was starting to lighten when we left Ed's house. He'd prepared a briefcase full of motions, complaints, and documentation. Diana had called her lawyer Robert, who agreed to meet us at the courthouse. And I had changed into a spare dress that Ed's late wife had left behind. Professional, dignified. Nothing like a woman who'd spent the night hiding from police. We arrived at the courthouse at 7:30. The hearing wasn't until 9, but Ed wanted us there early, visible, making our presence known. Robert arrived 15 minutes later, and he and Ed disappeared into a conference room to coordinate strategy. At 8 o'clock, Thomas and Rachel arrived. I watched them walk up the courthouse steps from where I sat in the lobby. Rachel was perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, carrying a folder that probably contained medical opinions and witness statements and everything she needed to paint me as incompetent. Thomas looked exhausted, worried, guilty. They saw me at the same moment, and I watched Rachel's perfect mask crack, just for a second. She hadn't expected me to be here. She'd thought I was still running, still hiding, still playing into her narrative of an incompetent woman fleeing from help. Then she saw Diana sitting next to me, and the crack widened. "What is she doing here?" Rachel's voice was sharp, loud enough to echo in the marble lobby. "Thomas, that's Diana Price, the woman who's been stalking me, the woman who broke into our house." Diana stood up slowly, and Robert appeared from the conference room like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Mrs. Price is here to surrender herself voluntarily," Robert said calmly. "She's represented by counsel and is cooperating fully with authorities." "She's a criminal," Rachel hissed. "She broke into my home, stole my private papers. Papers that document your fraud and murder?" The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. The lobby went silent. Thomas stared at me like I'd slapped him. Rachel's face went perfectly white, then flushed red. "Roxanne, that's enough," Thomas said, but his voice was uncertain now. "Mom, please. Your wife killed her brother," I said, standing up, looking directly at Thomas. She tampered with his brakes 8 months ago because he'd inherited money she thought should be hers. She's been planning to kill me too, or at least have me declared incompetent so she can steal the farm. And she's been using you, Thomas, making you complicit without you even knowing it. She's delusional, Rachel said to Thomas, but her voice was shaking now. This is exactly what I've been telling you. She's paranoid, I have your journal, Rachel. Diana's voice cut through the lobby like a knife. The one where you wrote about Kevin's brake lines. The one where you planned Roxanne's accident. The one where you documented every step of your fraud. Rachel turned to Diana, and for a moment, the mask fell away completely. What I saw in her eyes was pure, cold rage. That journal was in my private home. You had no right? I had every right to find out who killed my husband. Diana's voice was steady, certain. And now everyone else will too. This is insane. Rachel turned to Thomas, grabbed his arm. Thomas, you can't believe this. Your mother is sick. Diana is obsessed. They've constructed this whole fantasy. But Thomas was staring at Rachel now, and I saw something shifting in his expression. Doubt. The first crack in his certainty. Rachel, he said quietly, do you have a journal? Yes, but it's just personal thoughts, Thomas. Nothing. What does it say about my mother? Rachel's mouth opened and closed. She looked around the lobby, at me, at Diana, at the growing crowd of lawyers and courthouse staff who'd been drawn by the confrontation. It says that I've been trying to help her, Rachel said finally. That's all. Thomas, please, you have to trust me. But he'd let go of her arm. He was looking at her now, the way he should have been looking at her for months, with suspicion, with questioning, with the beginning of understanding. Ed emerged from the conference room with Judge Reynolds, who looked pale and angry. Behind them was another man I didn't recognize, wearing a suit that marked him as federal law enforcement. Mrs. Hayes? Mrs. Price? The federal agent stepped forward. I'm Special Agent Dennis Baker with the FBI. We'd like to speak with both of you about allegations of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit murder. Rachel's face went perfectly blank. I want a lawyer. That's your right, Agent Baker said calmly. But I should inform you that we've already obtained warrants to examine the financial records of you, Henry Morrison, and Judge Reynolds. We've also obtained warrants to exhume Kevin Price's body for re-examination. And we've been in contact with the manufacturer of the vehicle, Mr. Price was driving when he died. They're very interested in examining what's left of the brake system. This is harassment, Rachel said, but her voice had no strength behind it. I haven't done anything wrong. Then you'll have no problem answering our questions. Agent Baker gestured toward the conference room. Shall we? Thomas stood frozen, watching his wife walk away between federal agents. Then he turned to me, his face crumbling. Mom, Not now, I said quietly. Right now, we have a guardianship hearing to cancel. Ed stepped forward. Actually, Judge Reynolds has recused himself from the case. The hearing has been postponed pending the outcome of the federal investigation. Roxanne, you're free to go home. Home. My violated farmhouse, my reorganized kitchen, my invaded sanctuary. But it was mine, and it would be mine again fully once this was over. I looked at Thomas, at my son who'd chosen his wife over his mother, who'd been so easily manipulated because he wanted to believe in love and partnership and trust. Come to the farm tomorrow, I told him. We need to talk, but not today. Today, you need to sit with what you almost did, what you almost helped her do to me. His face crumpled completely, tears streaming down his cheeks. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I know you didn't. That's what scares me. I touched his face gently, the way I had when he was a child. Love isn't enough, Thomas. Wisdom matters too. Discernment matters. And you have to learn that before it costs you everything. I walked out of the courthouse with Diana beside me, into the cold December morning. Behind us, Rachel's perfect plan was collapsing into handcuffs and federal charges, and the slow grinding wheels of justice. But I'd survived. I'd outsmarted her. Not with strength or youth or violence, but with patience and preparation and the hard-earned wisdom of 70 years. "What happens now?" Diana asked. "Now," I said, "we go home and wait for the truth to finish revealing itself, and then we rebuild what she tried to destroy." 3 weeks later, I stood in my kitchen on a gray January morning, making coffee the way Harold had taught me 45 years ago. The ceramic canisters were back in their comfortable cluster by the stove. My recipe box sat next to the refrigerator where it belonged. The drawer that had been organized by Rachel now held my documents in my own system, chaotic perhaps to outside eyes, but perfect for me. The lemon cleaner smell was gone, replaced by the scent of fresh paint. I'd repainted the kitchen myself over the course of a week, covering every wall Rachel had touched, reclaiming every surface she'd invaded. My neighbor Betty had helped, asking no questions but offering quiet companionship while I worked out my anger with a roller and brush. Thomas was coming today. I'd put him off for 3 weeks, needing time to let the fury cool into something more useful, something more constructive. Diana had called me every few days with updates on the investigation, her voice growing stronger each time as the truth emerged, like bones from a thawed grave. The FBI had exhumed Kevin's body. The brake line on his car had been deliberately severed, scored with a tool that weakened it so it would fail catastrophically at high speed. The medical examiner found Kevin's original autopsy report had been incomplete, suspiciously rushed, signed off by a coroner who turned out to have gambling debts that were mysteriously paid off the week after Kevin's death. Judge Reynolds had resigned before he could be formally charged, but the investigation into his finances showed a pattern of suspicious cash deposits coinciding with cases he'd ruled on. Henry Morrison was already in custody, facing charges of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. He'd started talking almost immediately, giving the FBI everything they needed about Rachel's network of corruption. And Rachel herself sat in federal detention without bail, her perfect mask finally and completely shattered. The list of charges was staggering: conspiracy to commit murder in Kevin's death, attempted murder in my case, fraud, forgery, identity theft, money laundering. Her lawyers were already trying to negotiate a plea deal, but Diana and I had made it clear through the prosecutors that we wanted a trial. We wanted everything exposed. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 o'clock. Thomas was always punctual, a trait he'd inherited from Harold. I opened the door to find my son standing on the porch, holding a box of photographs. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. His eyes were hollow, his face drawn, and when he met my gaze, I saw something I'd never seen before in Thomas: complete and utter brokenness. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked. "Thank you for seeing me." I stepped aside to let him in. He stood in the entryway, looking around at the repainted kitchen, at the house that was mine again, and I saw tears building in his eyes. "I brought these," he said, holding out the box. "Pictures from my childhood, from when Dad was alive. I've been going through everything from the house, from the apartment Rachel and I shared, looking for who I was before I became someone who could do what I almost did to you." I took the box and set it on the kitchen table. "Coffee? Please." We sat across from each other at the same table where I'd fed him breakfast before school for 18 years, where Harold and I had argued over bills and laughed over crossword puzzles, where life had been complicated but real and honest. Now it felt like sacred ground, a place where truth had to be spoken. "I want to explain," Thomas began, but I held up my hand. "I want to explain first," I said. "I want to tell you about the night your father died." Thomas looked confused. "Mom, I know about that. Heart attack. I was there in the hospital." "Before the hospital. The day before." I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, gathering strength. "Your father knew something was wrong with his heart. The doctor had told him 6 months earlier that he needed surgery, that his arteries were blocked and time was running out. But Harold was stubborn. He didn't want to worry you, didn't want to seem weak or scared, so he kept it from both of us, tried to handle it alone." I didn't know that. Neither did I, until I found his medical records after he died. And do you know what I felt, Thomas? Anger, rage, that he'd robbed me of the chance to help him, to support him, to be his partner in facing his mortality. He'd made a unilateral decision that affected both of us, and he'd done it because he thought he was protecting me. Thomas's face was pale. Why are you telling me this? Because you did the same thing with Rachel. You let her make decisions about me, about my competence, about my future, without ever really asking me. You decided I needed help without investigating whether that was true. You chose to believe her version of reality because it was easier than questioning the woman you loved. I leaned forward, and in doing so, you almost became an accomplice to my murder. I know. His voice was barely a whisper. Mom, I know. I've been living with that knowledge every second of every day. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about what would have happened if you'd stayed in that house. If the gas line had... He couldn't finish. But I didn't stay. And the gas line didn't kill me. And now we have to figure out how to move forward. I reached across the table, took his hand. Thomas, I forgive you. I need you to know that first. You're my son. And I love you. And I forgive you. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. You have to live with what you almost did. You have to carry that weight and let it change you. Tears were streaming down his face now. How do I do that? How do I live with knowing I chose a murderer over my own mother? The same way I'm living with knowing my son was capable of being manipulated that thoroughly. We sit with the discomfort. We examine how it happened. We learn, and we grow, and we become better people because of the pain. Thomas pulled his hand away, stood up, walked to the window. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. I let him cry, understanding that some things needed to be purged before healing could begin. Finally, he turned back to me. I've left my job. I'm selling the house. Everything Rachel touched feels contaminated now. I'm starting over. Completely. And Mom, I want you to know, I've been seeing a therapist, someone who specializes in manipulation and abuse, because that's what it was. I was abused. She isolated me from you, made me doubt my own perceptions, used my love as a weapon. But that doesn't excuse what I did. It just explains it. Good, I said. Understanding how it happened is the first step to making sure it never happens again. He sat back down, wiping his eyes. Diana stopped by last week. She wanted to see if I was okay. After everything I helped Rachel do to her, to you, she checked on me. I don't deserve that kind of grace. Diana understands something you're still learning, that people can be both victims and perpetrators often at the same time. You were manipulated by Rachel, yes, but you also failed to protect me, failed to question, failed to see what was right in front of you. Both things are true. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of truth settling between us like snow. What happens now? Thomas asked. With Rachel's trial? With everything? Now we testify. Diana and I will tell our stories, and the jury will decide. The prosecutors are confident. They have the journal, the financial records, the testimony from Henry Morrison. Kevin's body provided physical evidence of the brake line tampering. The gas company worker who came to my house turned out to be an ex-convict Rachel hired through a friend. He's cooperating too. The case is solid. She's going to prison. For a very long time, if justice works the way it should. I paused. Does that bother you? Thomas thought about it. Really thought. And I was proud of him for not giving me an easy answer. It bothers me that I loved her, he said finally. It bothers me that I can't reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the monster she actually was. But no, I don't think she should avoid consequences. She killed Kevin. She tried to kill you. She destroyed so many lives for money and property and control. She needs to be stopped. That's a mature answer. I don't feel mature. I feel like a fool. Fools don't learn from their mistakes. You're learning. That makes you human, not foolish. The doorbell rang again. Through the window, I could see Diana's car in the driveway. I invited her to join us, I said to Thomas. I hope that's all right. He nodded, looking nervous. When I opened the door, Diana stood there holding a casserole dish, looking uncertain. I made too much lasagna, she said, the lie obvious and kind. Thought you might want some. Come in, I said, and she did, stepping into my kitchen and setting the dish on the counter. Thomas stood up, facing her awkwardly. Diana, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry doesn't seem like enough. It's not enough, Diana agreed. But it's a start. And Roxanne asked me to come today because she thinks we need to talk, all three of us. We're connected now by what Rachel did. We're survivors of the same monster. We can either let that connection be defined by trauma, or we can choose to let it become something else. Like what? Thomas asked. Like family, I said quietly. Not the family we're born into, but the family we choose. The family built on truth and survival and mutual understanding. Diana pulled out a chair, sat down at the table. Thomas sat back down too. And I poured 3 cups of coffee, feeling something shift in the air. Something broken beginning to heal. Something lost beginning to be found. Kevin would have liked you both, Diana said suddenly. He was kind, like Roxanne. And he was earnest, like Thomas. He believed in people, trusted them, thought the best of them. That's what got him killed. I won't make that mistake again, Thomas said. Don't overcorrect, I warned. Don't become cynical and suspicious of everyone. Rachel was an aberration, a predator who learned to mimic normal human emotion. Most people aren't like her. Most people are just flawed and complicated and trying their best. How do you tell the difference? Thomas asked. How do you know who to trust? I thought about Harold, about 40 years of marriage built on questions and conversations and the constant work of truly knowing another person. I thought about Diana, a stranger who'd risked everything to save me. I thought about Ed Parker, who'd believed me when belief required courage. You pay attention, I said, not just to what people say, but to what they do, to the patterns over time, to the way they treat people who can't do anything for them, to how they respond when they make mistakes. You look for consistency between words and actions, and you trust your instincts, but you verify them with evidence. Wisdom, Diana said softly. That's what you're describing. The kind that only comes from living long enough to see patterns, to learn from pain, to understand human nature. That's why Rachel targeted me, I realized out loud. She thought my age made me vulnerable. She didn't realize it made me dangerous. 70 years of life taught me to see manipulation, to trust my instincts, to fight back in ways she didn't expect. Thomas smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him in weeks. She thought you were a helpless old woman. She had no idea who she was dealing with. No one does, Diana agreed. That's the advantage of being underestimated. We talked for hours that day. About Kevin and Harold, about grief and rage, about the long process of healing and the longer process of learning to trust again. When Diana left, she hugged both Thomas and me, and I felt the beginning of something real between the 3 of us, not forgetting what had been done, but choosing to move forward together. Thomas lingered after Diana left, looking around my kitchen one more time. Mom, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I've learned from it. Can I help you with anything? The farm? The house? Anything you need? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, to prove I didn't need him. But that would be pride, not wisdom. And wisdom meant accepting help when it was genuinely offered, while maintaining boundaries and independence. Come back next week, I said. Help me repair the fence by the north pasture. Harold and I built it together and it needs work. We'll rebuild it together and we'll talk while we work. That's how you can help. He nodded, understanding the metaphor. I'll be here. After he left, I stood alone in my kitchen, my sanctuary restored, my life reclaimed. Through the window, I could see the winter fields stretching toward the horizon, dormant but not dead, waiting for spring to bring renewal. Rachel had tried to steal this from me. She'd tried to steal my home, my property, my dignity, my very life. But she'd failed, because she'd made the fundamental mistake of confusing age with weakness, wisdom with confusion, patience with passivity. I was 70 years old, and I'd just defeated a murderer without ever raising my voice or my fist. I'd done it with intelligence, preparation, and the kind of cold determination that can only be forged in the fires of a long life well lived. The farm was mine. The house was mine. My future was mine. And I'd earned every moment of it. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.